Great. Thanks, Luke. Well, thanks everyone for joining us over here. So we are, as you heard from Luke, the number 5 team in the world, which makes us very excited. We too, like Real Foundations, are a consulting firm, professional services, and we are in the business of helping organizations learn how to use these digital tools, Teams, Yammer, many others. I think it's really important for us to know that not everybody is a power user. And so what we're going to talk about today on the slides, Luke, if you want to go to the next one, is how to really make Teams and other tools accessible to your everyday employees. Those of us who are on the call are probably pretty good at the technology, but not everybody is so. So let me talk to you really quick about Talk Social to me. We're a very distributed team. We have actually only met one time in person altogether. We are all over the US. We are comprised of 100% women, and we all have various flexible schedules. And that's how our team has been architected since day one. So like I said, I've only met my team members once or twice, but we have to have an intense level of trust and respect for each other. And we also have to know where work is. So when somebody starts on the East Coast and they work on a document, and then somebody in the Midwest needs to work on it, and then they volley it over to me or somebody else over on the West Coast, we've got to have great organization around where is the document, what is the context, what are the updates, what is the client saying. So from sunrise to sundown, we are literally moving and trafficking information through Teams and the other Microsoft suite. Because we've never met each other, all this trust and all of this knowledge all lives in our digital communities on Teams. So next slide, Luke. So we are apparently the number 5 team in the world, which makes us very, very proud. I'm going to give you a quick overview of what this team is and how we got to there, but then also sort of help you understand how we architect our team's instance so that you can take these learnings back to your organization. We're very organized. We have built team norms, and we have a lot of really good best practices internally so that we can effectively communicate with each other, kill emails, and really collaborate. So the company operations team, which is the number 5 team in the world, this is the team with multiple channels where we organize all of the operations and all of the things that are not client specific. So inside our company operations teams, our channels include information about the events that we're going to, the marketing, what are we doing for webinars, what are the things that we're doing out there on social media, what are our competitors doing, what is the secret information we have about them, and then kind of how is our pipeline going. So all of these different pieces of how we run our business, we segmented them into channels within company operations. What that allows us to do is everybody can come and share information as they find it on the web, as they get a newsletter, as something pops up, or as we hear it. We all of a sudden add to the brain of the organization inside this team. Now, we didn't start out perfectly like this, right? We have been using a variety of tools. Our philosophy up until about a year ago was to use whatever tools our clients were using. So what that meant was that if our customers was using Yammer or Workplace or Slack or anything else, custom built solutions, we would keep all of that information in that particular technology solution for our client. And it worked great until our client base grew and our staff base grew, and all of a sudden, all of our information was all over the place, and that wasn't going to work for us. So we decided, as COVID sort of hit us, that we were going to put ourselves through the pain of a migration. A lot of our customers are going through a migration to Microsoft Teams and SharePoint and bringing everything to a single point. We decided that we had to rip off the Band-Aid and do all of that ourselves. So we had a project manager who led this elective migration, and through the course of several months, we decided, what are our teams going to look like? What is the structure going to look like? What are the norms and what are the habits that we are going to live with so that we can then share those with customers and people who need to know how to better use Teams. We also then decided during this content migration that we had to have a content purge. And Chris made a really good point earlier. Sometimes there's a document with 17 different versions, and we decided this is taking up a lot of mental energy when I do a search, which version is right. So we elected to remove everything except for the final version of something that we've delivered to a client, and then create sort of a best of, and that was something in our company operations team. You can see over at the bottom, the templates as well. So we only kept the best of the best and purged everything else. And then we finally entered into our learning curve, which I still think is ongoing. And that's really important for, I think, every company using Teams to consider, is that, in our opinion, Teams is a product built by power users, For power users, not necessarily everyday people who aren't tech aficionados. And so our top tip for this is to have patience with your people who maybe don't understand the Teams tool. What is a channel? What is a chat? Why should I be using one or the other? They need to be taught because we are coming, as Lori and Chris said, from an email-based world. And so we have to retrain people to understand what it's like to work inside this paradigm. We're still power users. We still get confused every day, and that's okay, and that should be expected. Next slide, Luke. So the most important step when doing our Teams instance is organize, but don't overcomplicate. So there's 3 tips that we have for an organization when you're setting up your Teams. This is how we've done it, but you may want to consider doing this as well. So number 1, again, very much like Real Foundations, every team is thematic, and every team has sub-channels. And so if we have a client or if we have a project or something we're doing with an outside consultant, there is a single team for that project. The project manager of that team owns it. They own the governance, they set it up, they're in charge of sort of building the foundation of the house before we all get in there and start contributing. When the project's over, hide it, right? I don't want the visual reminder of a project that I worked on 2 years ago. So that project manager really sets each team up. And what that means in step 2 here is each team has to be a home for that project or that deliverable. So when we have a customer, for example, our team is the single source of truth for all the information for that. It's where we have discussions about deliverables. It's where we've treated it like a wiki. So we use tabs across the top, and the tabs don't have to be the same from team to team, but we like to put everything in there that we may need for a particular customer. And then again, just like Real Foundations, we commit to conversations and files happening in the team and not chat. And that's because, like I said, we're a virtual organization. If somebody works on something and they get to edits through slide 15, but they don't get to slide 16, if someone on the East Coast chats that to somebody else, it doesn't tell me that I don't understand why the project is in a certain state. So when we are all in the team and all the conversation happens in the team and in the channel, everybody can see. That's the whole concept of working out loud that Chris was talking about is we're telling you, everyone on the team, where are we at this? When it's in a chat, it gets lost. And then the third component is we decided as an organization a common file structure so that when we go to the files for each customer, each project, everything is the same across each team. So while the tabs are different, file structure is the same. I always know if I need to search for a deliverable from a previous client, I can go into the files and there will be a deliverables folder or an images folder or an SOW so that I know what we're committed to providing. So this structure works for us. For much larger organizations, it may be a bit more complex, but it was going through this exercise that allowed us to build our norms and rules of the road. Next slide, Luke. So getting back to that company operations team, which is number 5, a couple of the best practices that we have, the channels are also very specific for within each team. So it makes us easy to find the right conversation that we're looking for. We really try and limit the number of channels. There's an art and a science to blending how many channels, how many places does your brain want to go? We've limited it to 7, and that's how many we decide to sort of divide and conquer. Any more clutter, and I think it would be a bit overwhelming for us. And again, using those wiki tabs across the top to organize information in our company operations channel has made it really, really helpful. And then finally, it's okay to shift and change. Even if you have a methodology and it's time to modify it, that's okay. So for example, we had a partners channel within the company operations group. Well, we have a lot of partners that we work with. And so when that became too busy, we decided, partners needs its own team. And we went through the exercise of shifting that information to a team in a variety of channels. So it's okay to do housekeeping and it's okay not to get it right the first time and to evolve. Next slide, Luke. So a few really, really in the weeds that I would encourage you to take home to your teams, and these again sort of mirror the Real Foundations great best practices. Whenever you are working in a team, in a channel, or even a chat, we have found it critical to mention people. And the reason that's important is because it triggers some kind of notification. It's either a little red dot in the feed, it's a push notification to the mobile app, and in many cases, it's an email notifications. So making sure that people learn how to mention, which is saying, hey, I need your attention on this, is critical. But at the same time, we encourage you to make sure that in your organization, people understand that an at mention doesn't mean I need you right now. So again, for us, when we're working across time zones, if I get an at mention from somebody at 10 o'clock at night my time, I know they're not looking for me to edit a document. It's just somebody working late and they're trying to give me a to-do list for the morning. We also think that formatting posts is absolutely critical. We like to sort of bold the top line of a post so that people can see sort of what's the subject line, keep things in bullet points, make sure that we sort of have a structure so that people can logically go through the entire conversation, and really use the replies to always go back to a critical conversation rather than starting a new conversation inside a team. We also have a practice of posting a weekly update inside the team. So what's going on with this client? What's going on with this particular project so that we all know what's happening? And that could include, hey, I'm out of the office on Thursday, so don't expect a response from me. So really making sure that everyone's open and aware about what's happening, where are we at, what's behind, what's ahead of schedule, and who's gone. This is another really critical one, is upload your file first. So when we are crafting these formatted posts and we want to say, hey, Melissa or Jen, it's time for you to take a look at this file, we'll make sure that they know what this file means. So upload that document to your team, capture the hyperlink, and then put that link into the post that you're writing. And it's a tiny little thing, but what it does is it directs people to the single source of truth that you've created, and we think that's very important. And then finally, we treat chats as disposable. We use them. Absolutely. I will ping someone, hey, Rachel, do you know where this is? Do you know what's going on here? But when we do that, we also know that this chat may disappear, or I may get too many chats and I don't have time to read them. So, make sure you're not overdoing the chat, and make sure that that those conversations may go away. And then the last slide that we have, Luke, is just a few tips that we typically give our customers for using Teams on a global scale. We can be rock stars with Teams as a small organization, but it's harder for a big organization to do that. And so we think it's really important to train managers to do a lot of the following. So number one is train those managers and project managers to set team norms and expectations. People managers are great people managers, but they may not necessarily know how to manage people digitally. Also ask them to move common emails to Teams. That's sort of a behavior shift that they may not think of, but that's a very tactical approach. And then ask them to lead by example. They may be a bit hesitant. Again, they may not be digital natives, but they may, it's their participation that we have found that brings their people in. So give them the accountability of leading by example. And then for IT, we always encourage, and I know it's hard, for them to understand that using something like Teams is behavior based, it's not another telephone rollout. You're not just uploading, a new update. You're asking people to physically change how they work, and in many cases, for someone who's spent an entire career in faxes and emails. And so we ask IT teams not to assume that everyone's going to know how to use it. Like I said, it's built by power users, kind of for power users. So we really suggest giving people training materials and even one-on-one training support by use case, by level, by, what do I do for the organization? We also say don't fall for the bots and apps trap. There are lots of great bots and apps out there, and those are definitely something you should consider if you have the use case, but don't think that a bot or an app is going to do the adoption work for you. Make sure that you invest the time in people so that they can invest the time in managing their teams. And then finally, this is one that comes off a little strange, but it's really important for us. Is our job is to roll these tools out. Our job is to communicate and help with collaboration, but nobody cares about rollouts and teams and collaboration as much as we do, because it's our job. So remember, if you have someone in marketing or finance or legal, their job isn't to embrace Teams and be a power user. Their job is to do what they're supposed to do. So make sure that you understand that people need to use this tool to get their own work done, not just to adopt it because that's our job. And with that, Luke, I'll turn it back to you.